Have you ever wondered if an ancient text could actually predict the future? I mean, not in some vague, horoscopy kind of way, but with specific, military-level detail. Today, we're diving into a fascinating chapter of the book of Daniel, chapter 11, which some historians look at and see a startlingly precise blueprint for a war that hadn't even happened yet. So, let's get into it and decode these verses together.
Now, a verse like this might just sound like old, cryptic writing. But what if I told you that some scholars argue this describes the exact moves of a specific king getting ready for a very specific war? This is just one piece of an incredible puzzle. And in this explainer, we're going to focus right in on verses 13 through 15 to see how these ancient words line up detail for detail with one of the biggest wars of the ancient world.
Okay, to really get what's going on here, we've got to rewind the clock, way back. After Alexander the Great died, his colossal empire wasn't passed down to a single heir. No, it basically just shattered, and his top generals carved it up for themselves. This kicked off a massive power struggle, giving rise to two powerhouse dynasties that would be at each other's throats for generations. Now, the book of Daniel doesn't use their official names. Instead, it gives them these cool, almost spy-like code names. The king of the north is the ruler of the Seleucid Empire, up in Syria. And the king of the south, that's the leader of the Ptolemaic kingdom, down in Egypt. For more than a century, these two were locked in a bitter fight for control of the valuable land right between them, which, includes modern-day Israel and Lebanon.
All right, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's zoom in on the specific prophecy we're looking at today, verses 13 through 15. Think of this as the list of claims. We're going to lay out exactly what the text says is supposed to happen, and then we'll see how it stacks up against what actually went down in the history books.
So claim number one is super specific. The king of the north is going to return after some earlier fight. And when he comes back, he's not going to make the same mistake twice. This time, he's showing up with a much, much bigger army, and he's going to be loaded with cash to fund the whole thing.
The next claim adds another layer to this. See, it's not just going to be a one-on-one showdown. The prophecy says that many will rise up against the king of the south. That hints at alliances, maybe even rebellions from within. It sets the stage for a massive crisis for Egypt, one the text says they are not going to win.
And here's the knockout punch. The prophecy predicts the final score. The king of the north, he's gonna win. And it even says how. By using siege warfare to take down fenced cities. Those heavily fortified strongholds. The southern army, for all their efforts, will be totally powerless to stop him.
Okay, so that's the prophecy. That's the blueprint. Now let's switch gears and look at the historical chessboard right around 204 BC. Because the king of the south, Ptolemaic Egypt, is about to walk into a perfect storm of trouble, creating a huge power vacuum that its enemies are just itching to fill.
So it all kicks off in 24 BC. The Egyptian king, Ptolemy IV, dies, and his son, Ptolemy V, takes the throne. The problem? He's just a little kid. And a child king is like a giant neon sign flashing weakness to all your rivals. And yep, they noticed. The very next year, a secret deal is made between Egypt's enemies, and by 202 BC, the war is on.
And the king of the north, Antiochus III, doesn't plan on going it alone. He makes a secret pact with another powerful ruler, Philip V of Macedon. Their plan? To literally carve up Egypt's territories and split the spoils. Now think back to that prophecy. An alliance of many standing up against the king of the south? This is a stunning historical match. Okay, here we go. This is the moment we've been building up to. We're going to place the words of the prophecy right alongside the recorded events of the Fifth Syrian War. This is where things get really wild, and you can see the interpretation come to life. Remember verse 13, that part about the northern king's return? Well, about 15 years earlier, in 217 BC, Antiochus III got his butt kicked by Egypt at the Battle of Raphia. The Fifth Syrian War was his comeback tour, and just like the text predicted, he spent those years building up his strength, coming back with a far bigger, far better equipped army.
So how does that whole many will rise up prophecy play out? Well, it was a total double whammy. First, you have the official alliance between Antiochus and Philip V attacking from the outside. But at the same time, history tells us Egypt was being ripped apart by massive revolts from the inside. The kingdom was literally crumbling from within while being invaded.
And what about that final victory from verse 15? The turning point in the war was the Battle of Pantanium in 200 BC. Antiochus III absolutely crushed the Egyptian army. The Egyptian general, Scuppus, ran for it with what was left of his army and barricaded himself inside the heavily fortified city of Sidon, a textbook fenced city. Antiochus just followed him, laid siege, and just as predicted, he took the city.
And to put a number on it, General Scopas was trapped in there with 10,000 of his best soldiers. The siege worked, and that entire force had to surrender. This event wasn't just some minor battle. It was a game changer that permanently shifted power in the region over to the Seleucids, exactly as the prophecy outlined.
So when you actually put the ancient text next to the historical records, the alignment is just incredible. This isn't some vague prediction about a leader from the north. It outlines a very specific sequence of military and political events that, according to this interpretation, played out exactly as written.
Let's just quickly run through the checklist one more time. The northern king, Antiochus III, returns after losing before. Check. He brings a much bigger, richer army. Check. He's got an alliance with Philip V, while Egypt is dealing with internal revolts. Check. He wins a decisive victory by successfully besieging a fortified city, Sidon. And check. It resulted in a permanent power shift. Every beat of the prophecy seems to have a direct historical echo.
And that leaves us with one heck of a final thought. We've just walked through an interpretation that presents a stunning correlation between a prophetic blueprint and a series of historical events. Now, this has sparked a huge debate. Some scholars argue this level of detail proves the text had to have been written after the war happened, that it's history disguised as prophecy. Others see it as evidence of something else entirely. So the question is, what does it truly mean when history and prophecy line up this perfectly? That's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.